Okay, so when you're asked the question or you ask the question, so what are you thinking about? And the response is nothing. Reality, it's a lie. There is no such thing as thinking about nothing. Our minds are never empty. We are always thinking about something. And usually when the response is nothing, it's because whatever the thoughts are at the time are completely inappropriate for the situation at hand. So if somebody is trying to share their thoughts and feelings about something and you're supposed to be listening and you're and seemingly paying attention and really thinking about how much you like the fabric on the bag that's sitting, right next to the person you're speaking to, you're not going to own up and say that that's what you were thinking about. So we always respond with nothing when we don't want to admit or own up to what we're actually thinking about at the time. But we are always thinking, and we simultaneously cannot multi-think, which means that we have at every moment a thought in our mind. We can switch very quickly what we're thinking about, but we're never thinking about more than one thing at any split second, millisecond, however you want to break it down. Which means that if the thought in our mind is a healthy, positive, growth-oriented thought, by definition, it is not an unhealthy, toxic, negative thought, and vice versa. So at every moment, whatever it is in our mind, whatever is in our head is our reality at that time. The founder of the Hasidic movement, the Baal Shem Tov, says that a person is where his thoughts are. What we're thinking determines who we are and where we are at that moment. So in this week's Torah portion of Vayeishev, which actually means to dwell, which is interesting because we can get stuck dwelling in certain thoughts or in a state of mind, we have the incident where Joseph is thrown into this pit by his brothers. And when he's put into the pit, the Torah tells us that the pit was empty and then specifies there was no water. So the foremost commentator, Rashi, asks the question, seems a little obvious. Empty would imply that there is nothing in it, thus there is no water in it either. Why the necessity to specify? And then he continues that the reason it says it was empty and there was no water is that in reality, nothing is empty. The pit is symbolic of the mind, of our head, of our consciousness. So it's never really empty. But if there is no water, then something else will take its place. Because water is considered the life-giving force. The world is comprised mainly of water. Our bodies are comprised mainly of water. We need water to live, right? We can survive much longer without food, shockingly so, but not without water. And therefore, water is also symbolic of Torah and of goodness and of wisdom. So when there isn't that water, when there isn't that life-sustaining force, when there isn't that positivity, what is in its place? It says that the pit was empty, there was no water, and then Rashi explains, in its place were snakes and scorpions. Why is this really interesting? Because the snake and the scorpion both are poisonous, but in different ways. The snake's poison is in its head, whereas the scorpion's poison is in its tail. So the explanation, according to Hasidic philosophy, is that when our mind is not filled with something positive and growth-oriented and healthy for us, instead it will be filled with the negativity and the poison that either bites you and gets you at the beginning of the process, the head of the process like the snake, or the reverse, at the end of the process like the scorpion, whose poison is in its tail. And we can see that in our lives. Some of us get all those doubts and get filled with that negativity and get filled with that insecurity before they even begin something. It's not worth it. It's never going to work out. It's going to be too much money. It's going to be too much time and too much effort. I'm not going to succeed, and I probably shouldn't even bother. And that's the head. Before it even starts, it's over. Other people, it's the tail. I am a tail person. The book is almost finished. The project is almost off the ground. All these ideas and all this work and all this effort, but completing it, finishing it, getting it just out there, that's when the poison comes in from the scorpion, gets you at the tail end. You should probably go through it. You should probably edit it one more time. You should probably add to it. You should probably, get some more opinions, which is actually why these Facebook Live videos is huge for me, because to just actually get it out there and not think it and overthink it and rethink it and redo it is a very big deal for me, because I'm that tail kind of person. So as we head into Hanukkah starting on Sunday and into this Shabbos now, we should be blessed to make sure that we are constantly keeping our mind filled with water, with something that is going to help us develop and help us grow and nourish us and sustain us and hydrate us in all positive ways. And it should never lack that water, because when it does, that's when those snakes and scorpions can get in, and we want to ensure they get out. So when somebody asks you what you're thinking, make sure you're thinking something that is positive and beautiful, so that instead of saying nothing, you can actually share what it is that's filling your mind. Have a great Shabbos, and we'll be in touch before Shabbos Hanukkah.